It's your girl Queen 504, and it's the weekend, baby. Yeah. Um, Coming to y'all today to speak um a little bit about law and legal terms. I've been watching the YNW Melly case, and even before the YNW Melly case, reading through comments and seeing how little our people are informed about even legal terms, legal jargon, um, and how it could be confusing, especially when you're taking a civilian definition for a legal term, and it may not necessarily mean the same thing in civilian terms than legal terms. um, and because of that, it could lead to some confusion in in you know when you're doing a live stream. It could lead to some confusion in the chat. um, Bloggers who are doing their thing. AK-47, he has been talking to a lawyer. He mentioned it in one of the lives that on his Instagram, he had a lawyer that came up and they had discussed the case with Mickey Truth. Mickey Truth she will pull the documents, whether she has to, pull up definitions or whatever. She's not afraid to sit there and research while she's on live. And I respect that, that she wants the correct information to get out there. And that's what our people need. We need the correct information to get out there, because the last thing we need is for one of us to get stopped by the police and we go to, well, I heard this in the live, so I'm just gonna tell this to the cop, and then the cop shoot you, pop out your ass. No, we don't need that happening. So this is very important, and I'm not just telling y'all this because it's a topic and it just interested me. I got thousands and thousands of dollars of law books in there. Thousands. They cost a lot and they thick. Um, but I haven't even looked online to see if you can just put into Google Black's Law Dictionary, and if it'll come up, and you can search terms under Black's Law Dictionary. Um, every law school student that I know has this book. It's almost your Bible going through law school, because there are a lot of terms that you have to know. And when you go to take the bar exam, you can't go through the bar exam and do your legal writing without these terms. So this is your legal Bible, and I swear by it. And I am recommending for anyone um, to know what the hell you're talking about. If you get pulled over by a cop, pull up a few cases that have to do with traffic stops and stop and search and seizure and no knock warrants. Pull up a few of those cases. Have them in your back pocket, because I tell you what, when a cop stops you and you cite a case to him and he don't even know it, it fucks him up. It fucks them up, because they're not required to know these cases or anything like that. So when you cite a case to them on the side of the road, shit, I tell you what, it'll back their asses up off you. It sure will. I've done it. Just don't be cocky about it, though. Just don't be cocky about it. I'm not telling y'all to do that. But before I go any further, let me just say that this whole video is for educational purposes only. The Fair Use Act will be in my description box for anything that I say that requires it. Everything that I'm saying is allegedly. Just say that. But I'm just speaking because as you all watch the defense side of the YNW Melly case, some of the terms that you don't understand, go into Google or whatever browser you use, type in Black's Law Dictionary, see if it comes up, and look for the legal terms, the legal definition of these terms. So with that being said, something that I noticed being talked about in chat was pretty much the prosecutor and the job that the prosecutor is doing. So I just want to talk about the difference between the prosecution and the police, or the DA's office. The DA office, the prosecution is the same thing. The police is a different entity, all on its own. The police have arresting authority. The DA's office has charging authority. The police make the arrest. The DA makes the charges. So whenever you're arrested by the police will always give you a charge. Here in Louisiana, let me go back to this one. When I first moved here in 1999, I was dating somebody with cash money, and I lived in some apartments in Jefferson Parish, but on the east bank of Jefferson Parish. And Jefferson Parish police are assholes, but I think they're all assholes. So Rusty, Traven, what's Juvis' brother name? CEO Corey. All of them was over there at my house one day. The apartments sat like right at the levee on the river road, right by Oshner. And we were all out there. It was a big parking lot, and we were all out in the parking lot, and somebody called the police, and I guess said we were making too much noise or something. And the police came, and one of them, the police was talking to us, but one of them spit on the ground while the police were talking to us. And that officer told him he could take him, and this was pre-law school for me, but I had a bad attitude just like the rest of them. He told him he could take him to jail for spitting on the ground. So because it was my house, I went off, and he was like, I said, go ahead with that bullshit. And he was like, no, that's a real charge. It is a real charge. Look it up. And I did. And it is a real charge here in Louisiana that, or at least I'm going to say in Jefferson Parish, I believe it's the whole state. It's a charge in the whole state that spitting on the ground, you can be charged with that and taken to jail. I got charged in St. Tammany Parish Because somebody called me and I cursed them out on the phone, and I got arrested for improper phone language, for cursing somebody out on the phone. So there are things that we do every day that we take for granted that could be a charge. That could be a charge, but it's the police's discretion. They get to use their discretion on whether they charge you or not. But the charge is there for them to use to their advantage. So we have to be careful about what we do. We have to know, our laws, at least some of them, because something like that, spitting on the ground, cursing, we curse people out every day. But I cursed the wrong white person out, and they called the police, and the police charged me with improper phone language. And I had to go through going to court and all of this stuff for cursing somebody out. Now, whatever other state you're in, again, Louisiana. Oh, I didn't say that on. Louisiana is a Napoleonic law state. I went to law school in California. I took the baby bar exam in California. So the laws here in Louisiana were foreign to me. But after I, started law school, I started learning the nuances of the laws between the one state in the whole country that has Napoleonic law versus the other 49 states that have European law. So you definitely want to be careful and be aware of how something really, really small can get you locked up, and cost you money, because that's the police's job. They make money off of the arrests that they make, whether the charges stick or not, because the police have to put a charge on. The police have to write something on that charging instrument that they're sending you to jail with. They have to write a charge in. So that's what they do. But it's not until your paperwork makes it over to the DA's office that the DA is going to look over everything. And at that point, the DA has 4 choices. The DA is either going to keep the charges the same that the police put on you, and they're looking at everything. They're looking at witnesses. The DA is only looking to charge you with what they feel they can win when they go to court. If they don't feel like they can win that charge that the police put on you, they're not going to charge you with that. They're only going to put on you what they feel like they can win when they go into court. So out of the 4 choices they have, they're either going to keep the charge that the police initially gave you. They're going to upgrade that charge that the police gave you, meaning they charged you with 2nd-degree murder on the scene and took you to jail. But when the DA gets the paperwork, they may have found out that there was a person who was in critical condition that has now passed away. So they're going to up that 2nd degree to 1st degree. They can downgrade it from 2nd degree to manslaughter. They may find out that, it was mutual combat, or it was a crime of passion or something like that. And they'll downgrade it to manslaughter. Or it's a possibility they could throw the whole case out. They're like, we have, 0 chance of winning this, or the police did something improper. the Young Dolph case. The way they contaminated that scene, I can't wait till this case comes up. Them cookie people contaminated the shit out of that scene. So I don't know how the DA is going to deal with that, but every video I've seen, you see the cookie people just walking all through the crime scene. I ain't never seen nothing like that. And this is a high profile case. But we'll see. So that's what the DA, that's their job. They are the charging authority. The police are the arresting authority. The DA is the charging authority. Not only is the DA the charging authority, but the prosecutor is within the DA's office. The prosecutor is the one who will go to court and try the case. So they're only going to charge you with the charges that they feel like they have enough proof to win the case in court. Sometimes you'll see a judge give instructions that say, if you can't find them guilty of second degree, then consider manslaughter. If you can't find manslaughter, then consider such and such. Like, the judge will give instructions to try the highest, look at, finding guilt or innocence with the highest charge, which may be second degree. And if they find innocent on second degree, then consider manslaughter. And, consider guilt or innocence for manslaughter. If you find innocent for manslaughter, then they may come down to like crime of passion or something like that. Do you feel they were guilty or innocent of this? So basically, the DA is taking, to me, and that's just my opinion, but it's fact that this is what happens a lot. If you go back and look at some cases, you'll see that, the judge will say, and he'll ask the jury, well, how do you, what do you find on second degree? And the foreman will read the thing and, say, well, we found him not guilty. And then the judge will say, well, how do you find on second degree? And or manslaughter, whatever. And they'll come back and they'll say, well, we found him not guilty of this. And then they may come back and the judge may say, okay, well, how do you find on conspiracy or accessory after the fact, or, different, like there's different levels that the DA will throw in there. Like, if we don't find them guilty on this and they say not guilty, we're going to keep going down the line until we find them guilty of something. Because putting myself in the juror's shoes now, with the jury, when you have a jury of 12, and in different states it's different. In some states, all 12, it has to be unanimous across the spectrum in order to be found guilty. In some states, it might be 10-2. It might be 8-4. But it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction on how many it takes to find a person guilty and send them to prison for any amount of time. However, the standard of reaching that verdict is the same across the board, from California to Louisiana to Florida, all 50 states. The burden of proof is going to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's that word reasonable. Um, and in law school, we talked about the word reasonable for a very long time because a jury is supposed to be made up of 12 reasonable people. Reasonable, and reasonable means that let me just I'm gonna read the definition out of the Black's Law Dictionary. Reasonable, it says fair, proper, or moderate under the circumstances, according to reason, having the faculty of reason. A reasonable person would have looked both ways before crossing the street. That's an example. Reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is defined as the doubt that prevents one from being firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt, or the belief that there is a real possibility that a defendant is not guilty. Beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard used by a jury to determine whether a criminal defendant is guilty. And this is the Model Penal Code 1.12. In deciding whether guilt has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, the jury must begin with the presumption that the defendant is innocent. So you're always starting with innocence. And then as the case goes on, the prosecution is presenting their case. So the prosecution is building that doubt of YNW Melly's, and I'm using this as an example. So I'm not stating fact about anything. All of this is alleged, just for educational purposes. The prosecution is building up that doubt in those jurors' minds because remember, they're coming in with a clean slate. They're coming in with he's innocent before anything else. So it's their job as the prosecutors to start sowing doubt in those 12 jurors' minds as to his innocence. And I just have to say this because even though it takes just one in Florida to say not guilty, then Melly would be found not guilty. I don't know if there are any other underlying charges that are there. I haven't even read the charging document in his case because I just didn't care. What I more so care about is my people knowing that they have resources and they can go and read this stuff, for themselves, and they can know the definitions for themselves if they're ever caught out there in a situation. But I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but as it's coming to my mind, I want to say this. Here in Louisiana, and I'm just using my state as an example, we're up and we're down when it comes to Republican / Democrat / independent, whatever. Sometimes we have Republican governor, sometimes we have a Democratic governor. It just depends on the year. And we may have a Republican, we may have a Democrat. But New Orleans, I don't know what the current makeup of New Orleans is at this point in time. But prior to Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans was predominantly Democrat. Jefferson Parish, predominantly Republican. So with New Orleans, when you're looking at a jury of your peers, because that's the term, that the terminology that's used, you are afforded to have a trial with a jury of your peers. So in New Orleans, most certainly, at least out of 12 jury people, you may have 6, 7 that may be Democrat or independent, whereas the others may be Republican or other. But there's a greater chance here in New Orleans that you'll get a jury that is more like-minded to, I don't want to say the criminal, but to the person on trial. In Florida, right now, I don't know about pre-Katrina or whatever, but the climate in Florida right now shows us that Florida is a Republican state, a Republican majority state. So it's more likely than not that when it comes to Melly, a jury of his peers will not be a jury of his peers. Them people never heard this man music before. Don't give a shit about his music. They were busy going work their Republican jobs. So it's a possibility that at least 7 of those jurors are Republican or independent. And you may have 5 that are Democrat or other. And that's something that when I've gone into these lives that I've watched, and Mickey Truth and King AK-47 are the only 2, other than the Law and Crime Network, are the only 2 that I've really watched their recaps about the trial. But they've never really brought up the jury. The jury is pretty much they're in the spotlight. That's the big piece of the puzzle, because everything is about swaying the jury. And I can tell you now, as just a law school person, Melly is not likable. If I was on the jury, and I'm an independent, he's not likable. He's not making himself likable in that courtroom. I don't give a shit how many suits he put on, how many turtlenecks he put on. He is not giving off likable in that courtroom. He's not. So if I was on the jury in his case, you know, I know that the juries they're watching him. They're watching his mannerisms. They're watching the kisses he's blowing. They're watching the yawns. They're watching everything this man does. And they're taking all of that into account when they go back to deliberate on his guilt or his innocence. And I'm sure his lawyers talk to him about that, but it almost seems like not only does he not give a shit, that female lawyer, for the people that watch this video, you can go and you can pull it up if you want to. His female lawyer has her own mugshot. She's not coming off as likable either. So it's almost like at the end of this trial, if Melly is found guilty for some reason, if he's found guilty, the first thing I would do is say that my counsel was ineffective. That's the first thing I would do, because one day she had a book. There was a book that she had that said something it was offensive to some people, that she would have that book and she had it open just like this, and the title of the book could clearly be seen. And that was a bad move for her. Um, so I don't know what his legal team is doing, but it's all about those 12 people that have to decide this man's fate on whether he is guilty or innocent. And once they have decided guilt or innocence, if they have decided guilt, um, I haven't seen if it's going to be the judge who decides whether the death penalty is applied or whether it's the jury. It can be either or. Um, I believe Melly makes that choice whether he wants the jury of his peers or whether he wants the judge to hand down sentencing. Um, but he's not doing himself any favors, and the attorney, at least now, they are objecting more and they're more engaged in his defense. But I feel like, again, I haven't said one way or the other whether he's guilty or innocent. But he's definitely an unlikable character, because I understand he's in jail, he's under pressure. So he's presenting to us this character that he has to come into court every day with, because back on the block, he wouldn't have on a suit and a damn turtleneck every day. So this is a character for him. And he doesn't seem to be taking it as seriously as, my life is on the line right now. And he really should. I'll just say, and no disrespect to the family. However, for the people that are saying free Melly and they don't know, guilt, innocence, or whatever, I can tell you, I wouldn't want him living next to me. If I had kids his age, I definitely would not. And this is me just watching him. I ain't listen to his music, but watching him, talk about he got murder on his mind and all this bullshit. Nigga, I got murder on my mind too. Like, you couldn't live next to me. Nobody. And for anybody that say that they would be cool with this dude getting out of jail and coming to live next to them and still have those questions in your mind, you crazy. I'm just gonna say it like that. But when he get out, he gotta live somewhere, and I know that somewhere is probably not going to be in the same community that all of this happened in. So I do want y'all to keep that in mind, that if he is found innocent, he has to go and live somewhere, and it's probably not going to be in the same community that that this incident happened in. So open y'all communities for him to come and live there. But we know he ain't coming to New Orleans, because he ain't gonna last here. He is not gonna last here. So he ain't coming to the, these little 14-year-olds will fuck him up. So we know that's not gonna happen. But yeah, I just wanted to do a quick video about just some of the stuff that I had seen. I do want to do another video. I don't know if it'll get done this weekend. But I want to talk about the elements of a crime. And before I talk about the elements, I would want to look at his paperwork, pull his paperwork, and look at the paperwork and see exactly what the charges are, and then be able to talk about the elements, because a lot of people wouldn't understand what the elements of a crime are. And I'll just read the definition real quick. The elements of a crime. The constituent parts of a crime, usually consisting of the actus reus, meaning the act of the crime, the mens rea, meaning what was your mind frame while the crime was being committed, and the causation that the prosecution must prove to sustain a conviction. The term is more broadly defined by the Model Penal Code 1.139 to refer to each component of the actus reus, causation, the mens rea, and any grading factors, and the negative of any defense. So anytime the DA charges a crime, charges you with a crime, each crime has elements listed under that crime. And each of those elements has to be proven, has to be able to be proven in order for a person to be convicted of that crime. So when you see the prosecution in court and they're like going down this timeline, they have to prove the act. If it's second degree, I don't know what degree Melly says. I'm thinking second degree. They have to prove that the act occurred, and they were able to prove that the act occurred. Like that was the easy part. The hard part is placing, because they didn't find a weapon. The hard part is placing a weapon in his hand. But what I just read you about elements, it doesn't say that a weapon has to be placed in someone's hand. It says the actus rea, which is the act. We know the act happened. They've proven the act happened. The mens rea is the hard one to prove because it's your mindset. You're having to prove what was on someone's mind when they committed this crime. And that's where you see the phone calls or the text messages and the Instagram messages and him doing the video shoot. They're saying within hours of this crime occurring. And he was, hyped and crunk and pumped up at this video shoot. That's showing that his mind was not on that. And causation, a motive, if you will. What was the cause that this happened? And it looks like where the prosecution is trying to go in saying that the cause of this was the fact that he had an argument in the studio with, what's the guy's name? Sack Chaser? That he and Sack Chaser had argued in the studio prior to them leaving. It seems like that's the way she's leaning when it comes to motive. That there was some animosity there before. I believe they also showed some messages where sack chaser was arguing with his mom. And so they're kind of trying to piece together and build the motive, saying that the motive had been building up over time. And so that's what they're trying to prove. And if you, look at those elements, that's why they're at the point now where they couldn't get these witnesses to come in, that they're resting their case because they feel like they have met the burden of these elements: actus rea, mens rea, and causation. And I'll just spell out actus rea just in case you want to go and look it up. And that's ACTUS and REUS. Um, Mens rea is MENSREA. Don't seem like a S should be on actus rea. It should just be ACTUS REA. Let me look it up real quick because I want you all to know the correct spelling, just in case you want to go and look it up yourself. Oh, it is. It's with an S. It is with an S. Actus reus. I didn't remember it being like that, but it is a Latin term. Actus reus and mens rea are both Latin terms, and you do see in it does say next to it right there, it means the guilty act, the wrongful deed that comprises the physical components of a crime, and that generally must be coupled with mens rea to establish criminal liability, also defined as a forbidden act. So, as I said, you all are free to go and look those up. Good ones are the elements of a crime, and every crime that's on the book, every crime has elements. Every single one has elements to them. So you can look up elements, and this is just a start for you guys. We're gonna take our time, and we're gonna get there. So elements, actus rea, and mens rea, causation. Start with those four, and then also do second degree. I believe for Melly, they're doing second degree and not first. So for second degree, and you all can see second degree right here. That is an element. For first degree, right here. That's also I'm saying that's an element. It's not an element. It's a charge. But for second degree, it says that it is an murder that is not aggravated by any of the circumstances of first degree murder. And for first degree murder, it is murder that is willful, deliberate, or premeditated, or that is committed during the course of another dangerous felony. And I was saying when I was looking at things, um, and lawyers may disagree with me. Again, different states, different laws. Um, but I was thinking about felony murder. Um, there were, the prosecution was talking about some satchels that were missing from the crime scene. And I believe they found a phone also that was missing. Um, and they found that phone like in a lake or somewhere by Frito Bang's house, or somewhere else that a police dog had to go, and they found that phone. Now, if that phone belonged to either victim, that could be considered a robbery, that they basically robbed them of their phones. And that's where felony murder could come in, because it's an murder that occurred during the commission of a dangerous felony. Um, so if Melly possibly is found innocent um, of that, they can look at, that the phones that, these guys, some of their property was missing from the scene, and come back and say, okay, we couldn't get you on that. Let's try you on this. Because the other guy, his residue, gunshot residue on his hands, whereas they're saying Melly did not. But if they can say that the other guy robbed these guys of their phones or whatever, that's a felony. That robbery was a felony. And the felony murder rule says that anyone else that was there can also be charged for the exact same thing that the other person was charged for, because someone was deleted during the commission of that felony. So it's interesting to see how this will play out. If the feds will, if he's found innocent, if the feds will swoop in and come back in with some charges, similar or same charges, and try him again. Because we have to remember that the state, looking at the state, and the fact that they may want to make an example, and I'm hoping this is not the case, but their governor is, you know, so with them trying to make an example of this case, so that the way that I see this as a form of societal control, and they are exercising the control by, okay, we're going to take this guy or these guys, we're going to put them on trial for this, and we're going to make sure we win this. And if we win this and we show these other rappers, male, female, dog, cat, whatever, by making an example of this case and making it the precedent in the state, it will control the actions of other rappers in the state. That had been on my mind a lot too. The control aspect of it. That every now and again, the government, allegedly, all for educational purposes, Fair Use Act is in the description box. I do have a degree in sociology, and I do have a degree in anthropology. And the government will use the media to exercise power and control. Um, they will use social programs to exercise power and control. So we have to be careful about some of the things that we automatically take as fact, because that's not always the case. Um, some things are thrown out there as a form of, it's thrown out there to control the public. Um, the same can be said for the opposite. Some information is thrown out there to put the public in an uproar. And it's so easy for us to respond first. We're so guilty of responding first and thinking later. But you have to be smarter than the system. The system is not always for us. It's not. And I'm going to give y'all an example. I'm coming up on an hour. I'm going to give two examples because I do want to talk about the Telly Hankton case in another video after I've done some research about it. But the Telly Hankton case is a famous case here in New Orleans, that they were picked up, put in jail by NOPD, and the DA then has the responsibility. Of course, they gave them, the police charged them with whatever they want to charge them with, but then it's the DA's responsibility to charge whatever they're going to charge within so many days. They have so many days to actually bring the charges, whatever the charges are that they're going to take to court and get them convicted on. The DA has to bring those charges within a certain number of days. Otherwise, they have to let them go. This happens a lot here in New Orleans. A lot. Whether it's the DA's fault, whether DA is guilty, whether it's the witnesses' fault, because we have witnesses that get deleted all the time. We have witnesses that go into protective custody, and still, once they are in protective custody, with NOPD, you can't feel safe. Look at the Antoinette Frank stuff that happened. So you can't feel safe, even with the police. So people just flat out will not testify. And if that's the bulk of the prosecution's case, then they're not going to bring those charges. They're going to let them go in hopes that, I guess, they'll go out and delete someone else so they could get another bite at the apple and charge them again. But what happened this last time is that they arrested Telly Hankton and his crew from the Fiend, and as the clock was ticking, eventually they let them walk. Eventually they walked. And this last time, the feds was like, "Oh no, ma'am, no sir, We ain't having it. No, sir. These people are a danger to the community, and we're going to step in and do what the state does not seem to be able to do. I'm not on any side of this, on either side, Telly Hankton them side or the state or Fed side. I'm just telling the story of where I believe, and this is just my opinion, where I believe these cases started being picked up by the feds. This is the first case where I saw that the feds took an interest in a case where the state grossly dropped the ball. So that'll be an interesting case to take a look at. And, you know, I'm not about the guilt or innocence of the defendants in that case. I'm strictly want to talk about how the legal system worked in that case and how it ended up in the feds. So that is one that I definitely want to take a look at. And now I talked about that and I forgot what the other case was. But saying that to say, here in New Orleans, notice that you ain't never heard of no limit coming up with no big cases like this. You ain't never heard of Cash Money coming up with no big cases like this. Big Boy, none of the labels, none of them. Why? Because here we still believe in 2023. Goddamn, we still believe in the G code. Juvie said it. We still believe in the G code. Niggas will be standing right there and see you get down. And will tell the police when they come, I ain't seen nothing. I already have my story straight. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. Police come to me, they gonna be like, did you see? We know you saw, you was standing right here. Yep, he had dreads and a white t-shirt. I haven't told that story so many times. They like, it's about 50 people out here with dreads and a white. That's all I got. That's all I got, sir. That's all I got. Dreads and a white t-shirt. How tall was he? I don't know. Dark complexion, light complexion. I don't know. I don't know nothing. That's all I can tell you. That's it. And I've been threatened with jail. All kinds of shit. If you're gonna take me, take me. If you're gonna take me, take me. And NOPD is not a place you want to be with them green bologna sandwiches. You don't want to be there. I can't think of the other case I wanted to talk about. But I definitely come back and talk about the Telly Hankton case and how it went from state to federal. I just need a little more time to research. I want to be able to tell y'all how many times they were picked up and released. And again, it's not speaking to their character. It's not speaking to Telly Hankton. I'm only saying his name because his name was the biggest name out of all of the guys, and his name was the one used the most in the news broadcast or whatever. I can't even tell you any of the other guys' names, but I know Telly Hankton is like the big name that they use. So please forgive me if it's a family member of yours and I'm saying his name, but I'm only using it because his name was the one used in the news broadcast and all of that. So I'm not saying he was the ringleader. I'm not saying, any of that. I'm just using his name because it just, for some reason, was tied the most when the news articles went out. It was tied the most um, to the case. But I'll make sure whenever I do another video that I have all the names of all the other guys who went to court with him, because it was not just Telly Hankton. I think there were like 8 or 9 people together in those charges. So I don't want to seem like I'm biased or anything, because I'm not. And I think I'm going to leave it there because I can't think of the other case I wanted to talk about. So I'll just leave it there. Don't forget the end of the month, July 31st. I just looked it up a couple days ago. July 31st, Lil Cam, in the takeoff case. He has court July 31st, 9:30 a.m. When I last checked a couple of days ago, that was still a go. Hadn't changed. So we will still be looking forward to that. And a quick resolution, hopefully, to Kirshnick Ball's case, better known as Takeoff of the Migos. And that's all I have today. I am going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks for sticking with me through this hour. Again, I'm Queen 504. Enjoy y'all weekend, baby.